Hello, I'm Dave March, the Spy Guy, and I've been meaning to get another video out. Just life gets in the way sometimes. Uh, I'm going to talk to you about today is something. Oh, good. I'm going. Sorry about the mic being in the way. I'm was originally intending to do this as my next video. Let's try and get some light here, or maybe you would prefer me speaking from the shadows. I was hoping to get talk about in honor of the last video I did, which was my list of James Bond videos. I wanted to talk about the real life American James Bond, uh, uh, introduced to William Harvey, who was a very interesting guy, did all kinds of crazy stuff, and but uh, was didn't look like James Bond at all. But I just didn't have the time to put that thing together. So I wanted to get something out this week for sure. And so I'm going to talk a bit about the Central Intelligence Agency. So we'll get into the bit of the history of the CIA here. So as most people would know, the CIA is headquartered in Langley, Virginia. It's either called the agency or the company by insiders and outsiders, and all the movies done that. And it was established with the Department of Defense and National Security Council by the National Security Act of 1947. Of course, it came out of a bunch of different branches of things that were happening in World War II, the OSS being the primary example, but there were some other situations that include some of the code breaking stuff that was coming out of especially out of the West with the Navy. I felt there should be a civilian organization as opposed to a military one. They had a lot of thinking going on. There was a strong feeling that critical information that had warned of the Japanese attack had been missed because there was no central intelligence unit that could integrate information from all sources and produce a comprehensive national intelligence. I'm reading from the book here. Sorry, guys. During the war, and it's that book I'm showing in the last video. Yes, it is from the 80s, so it's a little dated. But I just wanted to get, like I said, I wanted to get information out there in the secret history of the CIA. The OSS, as I was saying earlier, Office of Strategic Services, had a rocky relationship with the War Department. MacArthur in the Pacific refused to have them anywhere near anything he was doing, preferring a more traditional approach. Though he did have his own spies, and I'll cover them in a future video. There was OSS never became a truly national intelligence organization, and apparently the name OSS became known as OSO Social. It was demobilized in September 45, soon after the war with Japan. However, listening to some podcasts and listening to a lot of history, it seemed a certain amount of it just kept getting named a different agency for the next 2 years. And one guy I listened to a podcast with a station chief at the time, and he just said, you know what? Every 3 months, he gave me a new name, but I was doing the same work that I had done before the war went on. So, like I said, I'm coming in from the darkness here, and we'll just, I can be the shadowy spy guy. Apparently, after the abolishment, there was a number of plans to replace it. The president at the time, Harry Truman, sided with the Joint Chiefs' recommendation that he form a supervisory unit called the National Intelligence Authority. Under that unit, he created the post of Director of Central Intelligence, an official supposed to have authority over all United States intelligence operations and organizations. It didn't work out. They after 9/11, they reorganized things and created a director of national intelligence to do the same job that the CIA director was supposed to be doing in the first place. But the CIA director had a major advantage over all the other intelligence agencies for the longest time because he created he could get instant access, usually to the president. Sometimes as director of CIA was in cabinet, as it was under Reagan, but usually they had a good. Sometimes there were rocky relationships, like when it was under Nixon, but generally you had a daily briefing that was going on for the president, starting really under JFK or Eisenhower. Like there was this Daily Brief, and it became first started off like a pamphlet, just what's going on, and maybe I'll get into a future episode on the Daily Brief. The DCI at the time directly controlled only the small Central Intelligence Group. However, initially worked out of a tiny suite of only 3 rooms next door to the White House. The first chief of that group was Army Air Force General Hoyt S. Vandenberg. He had very little intelligence and experience, but a good organizer. Became a sustained effort to build up the CIG. And that's usually how it goes, is that sometimes you don't want someone who's a spy to be running your show. You want an organizer, an engineer, or something like that. That was Leslie Groves during the creation of the A-bomb. He didn't know too much about science and physics, but he knew how to build buildings, and he got those buildings built for the scientists so they could build the bomb. Sorry, I'm a little thirsty. At the time, the organization was authorized less than 250 personnel when the National Intelligence Authority was established in January 46. He also created an office for research and evaluation plus an administrative service, which is actually very much what the structure of the CIA is today. And I'll get into that a little later. This now strategic service units moved back in the War Department, reconstructed as the Office of Special Operations. See what I mean? That guy kept saying, I was showing up every day, and every 3 months we were a new name. He also had planned, by the end of 46, he had 2,000 people. And he was going to go up to 3,000 within the next 6 months. It was in early 47 when there were various plans for the post-war reorganization. The U.S. government came together in the National Security Act. The intelligence agency, retitled the CIA, was incorporated in those plans. It was made directly answerable to the president through the National Security Council. And the DSCI was the statutory intelligence advisor. So the CIA always has a seat at the table of the National Security Council, guaranteed. Unlike other guys who got to come and go as the whims the president would want. On 8th of September, the CIG became the CIA. A new DCI was now in office. Rear Admiral Roscoe Hillenkoetter, a living reminder of the intelligence failure at Pearl Harbor, where he had been an executive officer on the battleships that was sunk. In its first year, the CIA added hundreds of additional personnel and increased its budget by 60%. It was just growing to fill, and bureaucracy expands to fill the needs of the bureaucracy. Agency's organizational base grew substantially with U.S. government decisions in December of 47 and June 48 to conduct a program of covert operations against the Soviet bloc. This resulted in the formation of a new CIA unit, first called the Office of Special Projects, then the Office of Policy Coordination. By the beginning of 1948, the unit already had 7 field stations, 302 personnel, and a budget of $4.7 million. Thus, the basic structure of the CIA was in place in 48, the very beginning of the Cold War. The agency was located in Washington at 2430 E Street, Northwest, mailing address for a complex of temporary office buildings around the reflecting pool. These buildings were built during the Depression by the Civilian Conservation Corps and housed the OSS during World War II. The CIA's analytical component was the Office of Research and Evaluation, retitled the Office of Reports and Estimates. Its espionage branch, which was the OSO, and its covert, or actually knew it's the OPC. So I'm just going to skip a little ahead, so as we're getting really bogged down in details here. Basically, the organization around about the 80s, it's still pretty similar today. You have the director of the CIA, the deputy director of the CIA. The director of the CIA can be a long-term intelligence professional, or it can be a political appointee. The current director of the CIA is a long-term, was a previous deputy director. She's the first female director of the CIA, long-term intelligence professional. However, in the past, you had, and it usually tends to go that way. People have been director, and however, you do have times when you have people like the first George H.W. Bush, who was a naval pilot and a political appointee, and he was put in charge under President Ford. And however, he did have a long time, previously had been an ambassador to China, so he had some like intelligent professionalism coming out of that. And I mean, he had been like, they talk about Hillary Clinton, the most qualified person to ever run for president. Nonsense. The most qualified person to ever run for president, at least in this era, I can't say always back about the 19th century, was George H.W. Bush. 3-term congressman, director of CIA, ambassador to China, ambassador to the United Nations, vice president for 8 years, former head of the Republican National Organization. Like, Hillary Clinton didn't stand a chance, but hey, whatever. Then you go to the deputy director, who is usually the professional. Then you had a general counsel for your legal branch, an inspector general who does inspect the stuff, a comptroller, equal opportunity, employment and opportunity. I'm sure that's still there. The director of personnel, director of HR now, director of policy and planning. Someone's got to write up the training manual. Someone's got to plan the fact that the building's going to need maintenance. But the 4 big directorates are Director of Intelligence, the analysis branch, all those guys working in offices trying to figure out what's going on. The Directorate of Operations, the actual case officers and spies who actually go out and do stuff. People tend to forget that spies are supposed to be people who in any other country would be called criminals for what they're doing. But because they're doing it for their country, they're spies. If they lose their color of authority, they're criminals. Directorate of Science and Technology, and so making all the spy gadgets. There was at one point during the 70s, usually the deputy director will come out of intelligence or operations, but there's a brief time in the 70s, because all those guys are thoroughly scandalized by the church committee, that the director of science and technology gets to go testify by the church committee, and he says, I spent most of my time explaining to these guys, these senators, how my gadgets worked. He gave us great cover, and they were very impressed, and they're like, ooh, like I would be if I were in that kind of situation. And then there's Directorate of Administration, the secretarial pool, the HR pool, all that stuff has to be, everyone else does it, they need it. Anyways, I'm going to end it right here. I'll get back into more Director of Intelligence stuff later. I seem to be getting pinged online for some reason, even though I said I wouldn't be available at 3. Anyways, hope you enjoyed the video. We're going to be covering more of this. I'll maybe get back to do a second video on, well, no, I'll be doing lots of videos on the CIA and getting into this, and we'll be getting into the KGB and smaller intelligence agencies over the next few months. So I hope you like the video. As I say, like, share, subscribe, watch, do whatever the heck you want. I know there's only a handful of people out there, but I'm just going to keep making content at least once a week like this, and letting you know what's going on, and letting you know the history stuff. Like I said, I got tired of doing all that breaking news stuff. It just was not good for my blood pressure. So, and frankly, I just don't like doing that. There's plenty of people who want to be even angrier than Tim Pool. I'll be the guy who talks about spies. Okay, well, thank you, and hopefully I'll see you around in the comments. And where is that button? Oh, there we go.